Welcome back. This is Brian again with some tutorials to really help you get the most out of your Bebop2 drone from Parrot. One of the coolest things you can do with your Parrot is what they call a flight plan. Now a flight plan will allow you to, before you even get to your destination, pull up a map and create a plan of what you want your drone to do before you get there. And you have total control over what it does and how it does it. So let's get started. First step is go ahead and open up your Free Flight Pro app and connect to it by hitting the flight plan. Now this is an in-app purchase. It's a one-time purchase, I believe, of about $15. Well worth it. So to get started, we want to go to the little file menu here, click on that, and we're going to create a new flight plan. We don't have to worry about saving the old one. I've already done that. Now of course you want to choose Bebop2 drone because that's the kind of drone we have. So it'll pull up a map typically of where you are. If you hit this button right here, it'll center it to your current location. Of course you can pull up a map and center it to anywhere you want to go. So say for example I want to create a flight in my neighborhood. Okay, so the way you do that is you tap anywhere that you want it to start, and notice that you see an arrow there and a number. So the arrow shows you the direction it's facing, and the number is how many feet up in the air it is. So let's just do something very simple. Let's have it go, I don't know, around the cul-de-sac, down the street, and let's zoom out a little bit so we can see more of what we're doing. Let's have it fly over to this empty lot, and then back around to where it started from. So let's have it land right next to where it started. Now, if I want to change how high it goes, you tap on that particular dot, and to the right here you have a little lever where you can change how many feet up it is. Notice that it turns red as it gets closer to the legal limit of 400 feet. Now the drone will let you go 500 feet. Don't recommend going there. You want to make sure that you stay within the legal guidelines. That way everybody's happy. So let's have it go up to 381 feet, and as it circles around, we'll have it constantly changing altitude, which makes for more interesting videos. Now, if you're going to be in a populated area, make sure you go way above anybody's house so you don't have anybody getting angry at you. You don't want your neighbors to resent your flying the drone near their windows, of course, or anything else. So let's go ahead and change some altitudes here. Now notice in between the two lines you'll see a couple of interesting things. This is how many feet is between this point and this point, so you can get an idea of how far away it is from you. Out of the box, connected to a phone or tablet, the distance that it's capable of is about 1,000 feet. If you get one of the remotes like the Sky controller, you have a range of about 1.2 miles. But remember, it has to be line of sight. Now let's do a couple of other things. Let's have it adjust the angle that it's facing. So let's touch this one, see how it gets bigger. That means I can change it, and I can actually touch the little arrow and tell it to go sideways. Let's have it go sideways all the way from that point to this point, and then let's have it go backwards so it's going in one direction, which is this way, but it's actually facing that way. It makes for interesting videos, especially if you're climbing. So let's have it climb a little bit more here. So we'll make it larger, raise the altitude. Now another thing you can do is if you touch the line in between the dots, you'll see the speed that it can actually go. Now this is going to be feet per second. So the maximum speed in the flight mode is 33 feet per second, which is about 20 miles an hour. If you're flying it manually, you can go about 40 miles an hour. Obviously they've put in some kind of safety there so that it doesn't go too fast when you're not actively controlling it. So this is how fast it's going to go from point A to point B. I find that the higher up you are, the faster you want to go. It keeps it interesting because it looks like you're going slower the higher up you are. Now as it comes down and starts to descend, I'm going to have it slow down a little bit so that I can really get some good detail. Let's have it actually check the roof of my house. Now that brings me to the next point. There's something called a point of interest. So let's say for example I press and hold right here. Point of interest means that it's going to stay focused on that particular spot with any of these dots that I touch, and they turn the same color as the dot over my house. So say for example, there's the hailstorm and I want to check my roof for hail damage. Well, let's have it focus on that particular point as it flies around my house. Once I have told it which of those dots I want to aim towards that spot, I can hit save. But don't forget, you can also tell it how high you want it to focus on. So my roof is about 33 feet. So let's have it focus on the very top of my roof. All right. And once I have saved that, I'm going to hit the button there to lock that in. You can do multiple points of interest. So say for example, I want to, I don't know, film the shopping center over here, right? So I can press and hold, create another point of interest. Notice that it's a different color so you can keep track of all that. And I'm going to zoom back in and have, when it takes off, to look at that shopping center at first. And then it'll gradually turn around as it gets to the next spot. Now, the other thing that can make that turning around more smooth is if you press and hold, you see where it says progressive course. What that means is it'll slowly turn from that angle to that angle in between those two places. So rather than it just spinning really quickly when it gets from point A to point B, which does not make for a pleasant playback experience, you can press and hold and tell it to progressively or slowly turn from that angle that it's pointing at here to this angle that it's pointing at here, making your videos look much more professional. I recommend doing that for every line in between the points, just because again it makes for better quality videos. Now notice between the points of interest it's going to do that automatically, so it doesn't give me that option. One other thing you can do as you're creating your flight plan is if you press and hold here, you can add another spot. So say for example, maybe I want it to back up a little bit over this empty space. Well, I can do that, and then again once I'm done editing the direction or the height, then I can just hit it again and it basically locks it into place. There are some other options in here that you can take advantage of, but the most important thing is knowing what direction you want it to face, knowing how fast you want it to go in between points A and B, and how high you want it to go. And keep in mind, keep things interesting by constantly varying the height and also the angles. Sometimes just going forward all the time is not necessarily the most exciting video. Going backwards or sideways is also a good option as well. There's some advanced functions in here that you can take advantage of. I really wouldn't worry about that right now because they don't make as much of a difference as the actual part that you see here on the screen. So try it out. Make sure after you create your flight plan, before you actually get started, a couple of things. Make sure you actually start in the place that it tells it to start. If you don't do that, it's going to try to go to that spot from another spot, and you could run into an obstacle. Another thing you want to do when you get to the starting point is just look around you, make sure there's no obstacles that you didn't take into account on the map. Make sure, for example, it's going to go over any trees or any light posts or anything of that nature. Keep in mind, one last thing is during the flight plan, if something unexpected happens, you can tap your screen and it will automatically switch back to the manual mode, which will override the flight plan, and then you can bring it back home safely. Bringing it back home safely is also possible by hitting the home button on the top of your screen, and that will automatically bring it to 75 feet and then come back to the spot where it took off. That's it for now. We'll cover more later.